Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Glitch Phoenix, and in today's video, I wanted to do a voiceover FAQ. Over the years, I've been asked a lot of art related questions that tend to be kind of the same questions over and over again. And I thought it might be kind of beneficial for everyone if I just do a video of sorts where people can come, watch it, and get the answers to the questions rather than me kind of giving different answers every single time. Well, they're not different answers, but they're it would be better if I can just do a one-off answer and then that's it. I have debated doing a written FAQ, and I probably will, but this is a bit more personal. You get to listen to my sweet voice while watching a speed paint. Speaking of speed paints, the video that I'm using for this voiceover is actually a recording of a commission I just recently finished. The commission is of the character Noelle Silva. Very sorry if I've just butchered her name, but she's from the anime and manga series Black Clover. I've heard of Black Clover, but I've never watched it or consumed it in any way. So hopefully this video is entertaining enough to kind of just watch in the background as you listen to me answer these questions. And if you like this kind of content or you're interested in following my videos, do consider subscribing. I am intending to create a bunch more videos in the coming months. The big thing that was holding me back before was the computer I was using previously. When I would try and record, it would just lag. It would lag my Photoshop out, and I couldn't actually do my work to create the content for the videos. But now I've upgraded and it runs smooth as anything while I'm recording the screen, so it's perfect. So I've got a bunch of footage already recorded, and hopefully I'll have even more videos coming out soon. So yeah, the questions that I've got for this video today are I think there's about 16 questions. Oh no, it looks like 20 questions that I've compiled. They're a mixture of questions either that I've recalled, like I know I've been asked these questions loads, so I've just recalled them, as well as questions that I was asked. I did a story on my Instagram a few weeks ago just to see if anyone had any questions that they wanted to ask for this video, so I've added those in as well. Okay, so with all that out of the way, let's jump into the questions. Also, I really hope this audio is okay. I'm using a headset. I'm not used to. I'm not a YouTuber. I don't have, fancy gear or anything. So hopefully the audio is crisp and clear enough. I apologize if it's not, top quality. I don't have the kit. Obviously if I start to make more YouTube videos like this, I will invest in better equipment. But for now, since I'm just starting out and I don't know if I'll be doing voiceovers frequently, I'm just gonna have to stick with what I've got. All right, so let's jump into the questions. Right. So question 1, and one of the most frequently asked questions: how long have you been drawing? I've been drawing since I could hold a pencil. I hate that answer so much. I hate it. I mean, you hear a lot of artists answer it that way, and there's no shade, no shade. It's a fair answer. But it's just so I don't know. I just never liked it. But you know, as soon as I could draw, I physically be able to hold a pencil, I've been doodling. My parents immediately noticed that. They knew I had an affinity for drawing, or at least a passion for it. So I've been drawing my whole life, doodling. My teachers hated me in school because I was constantly drawing all the time in class and not paying attention, or they'd give us workbooks to work in and my workbook would be covered in doodles and sketches and all sorts of stuff. And yeah, but in terms of professionally drawing, like drawing as a freelance artist, I've been doing that for about 5 years now. It'll be 5 years in November. I've been professionally drawing full time. So question 2: how did you learn to draw? And this kind of connects into question 3. So I think I'll merge the two. So question 3 is, did you go to art school or have you studied art? So I'll just kind of answer those together. They're along the same lines. So I learned to draw first. Initially, I learned the basics, the fundamentals for art, and realism, realism, I guess, or fine art. Um, when I was younger, obviously my parents noticed that I loved to draw, so they enrolled me in after school art classes. So once a week, I would go for, I think it was a couple of hours. I would go to these art classes, this art class that was held at the house of a local artist. She would teach classes multiple nights a week. And it was usually like a group of either it was a group of kids or a group of adolescents or a group of adults. I think she had all three classes. So I did that once a week for 10 years. So I think I started when I was 7 and I ended around 17 when I started college. And it was in those classes that I learned the fundamentals. So, drawing shapes, lighting and shading, color theory. I learned how to use certain traditional mediums such as charcoal, pastels, and watercolors. And kind of the way the classes were after you learned, I remember the first introductory thing you had to draw was she had these shapes, actual like shapes she would put on the table in front of you. So there was a sphere, a cube, and a cone, and you would have to draw them. And then once you did that, then you kind of got to pick whatever you wanted to draw. So whether it was she would put an item in front of you, and she had an amazing collection of items like taxidermied animals or animal bones that she found while out for walks in the woods, or old corroded pots or driftwood or all sorts of stuff. Or if you didn't want to do something, just a physical object, and you wanted to do a scene, she had an amazing collection of National Geographic or those types of books, and you could pick a photo and you would draw what you see. So that was kind of how that class worked. But in terms of actually studying art, like in a post-secondary setting, post-secondary education setting, I didn't. I did not study art in university or college. After I finished high school, I did go to college for a couple of years and I took a graphic design course. So technically it's within the arts, but it wasn't studying art itself. But yeah, that's how I learned the fundamentals and how I learned to draw realistically and traditionally. But in terms of how did I learn to draw, anime style or kind of more cartoony style, the style you see today, really, that was something I learned on my own. I would, I'm going to date myself here. What I used to do, I used to be this was back when the hype for Pokemon and Digimon and like all those kinds of late 90s anime was huge. It was at its height. It just really gotten big. And I used to record episodes on VHS. See, I said I was going to date myself. I used to record them on VHS. More often it was Digimon because while I love the Pokemon games, I much preferred the Digimon anime. That was way better, honestly, in my opinion. So I would record episodes, and then what I would do is when I would play them back, I would pause at a particular frame that I would like of a character or characters or a scene or something, and I would try and redraw it. So I'd be sat on the couch with a pencil and paper, and I'd try and redraw what I'm seeing on the TV. And I did that quite frequently until, with the rise of the internet, my family eventually got a printer. And when we got the printer, that's when, to my father's horror, I wasted copious amounts of ink by printing out a bunch of pictures of anime characters, whether it was official anime art or it was fan art. I would print all these pictures and then I would try and redraw them freehand. So I wouldn't be tracing or anything. I would just look at the picture and then try and redraw it next to it. And I did that for a while until finally I got comfortable and confident enough and understood the style enough that I could do it without having to have that reference, and I could just do it from memory or just get an idea of in my head and draw from there. And that kind of technique, that whole using a reference until you get used to it, it still rings true today. It's not so much that I don't try and redraw drawings that I see anymore. Instead, let's say I find a piece of art and there's a certain technique that's used in the art. Let's say it's a lighting technique and I absolutely love it. What I'll do is I'll quote unquote study the drawing, and that equates to me just staring at it, looking at it for ages, just kind of trying to deconstruct it in my mind and figure out how that artist might have achieved that effect. And then in my own painting, my own personal painting, I will try and recreate it the way I think they did it. And sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not, sometimes I'm slightly successful, and it takes a bit more practice and eventually I'll get it. But that tends to be how I learn to draw now, rather than how I used to, where it would just be completely recreating what I see. Okay, I guess we're on to question 4 now. What do you use to draw? So I'm going to be explaining, I'm going to go through everything I used to draw. So I am primarily a digital artist now. I don't often use traditional mediums anymore, which is kind of funny because I used to be very strictly a traditional artist. I was very anti-digital art until about 10 or 11 years ago. I hated trying to draw on a tablet, one of those tablets where you're looking at the screen but your hands on the tablet. I hated that. It felt so unnatural and I couldn't get my head around it. And I was adamant, no, I'm just going to stay traditional. But no, now I'm pretty much 100% digital. I work on a PC. It was actually only 2 or 3 months ago I switched back to using PC. Prior to that, for the last few years, I had been working on a Mac, which there are pros and cons for, and I'd be happy to do a video review of what it was like to work on a Mac for that kind of stuff. But yeah, I much prefer PCs, so I'm really glad to be back on that. To draw on, I use a Wacom or Wacom. Not sure how people like to pronounce that. I use a Wacom Cintiq 22, not to be confused with the 22 HD. There is actually a model that's just Cintiq 22. It's a pretty new model, and it's part of their quote-unquote budget line. I used to work on the 22 HD, but last year, it was actually just over a year ago now, my HD died on me. The display just went, and the warranty by then, because it was 5 years old, the warranty was gone, and when I contacted Wacom, and what they said I would have to do to get it repaired or even just looked at sounded like a hassle, and I was going to have to shell out a bunch of money. So I just said, forget it. I'll just get a new tablet. And thankfully, it was only a few weeks prior to my Cintiq breaking that they had just released the Cintiq 22. So that was pretty cool being able to get my hands on that. In fact, I was considering doing a video review of the Cintiq 22 because I know a lot of artists, digital artists, are kind of hum and haw whether or not to get a Wacom or whether to get a different brand model. And I'd be happy to do a video review of the pros and cons and what I think of working on specifically the Cintiq 22, but also just working with Wacom products in general, because that's pretty much what I've used over the years. I used the Intuos years ago, and then I did the 22 HD. So I'd be happy to do a video review. I would need to get a camera, so I'd need to figure that out. So if you guys would like me to do a video review of that, please do let me know in the comments, and I'll put that together. But yeah, so I draw on the Cintiq and I use Photoshop for all of my paintings. I don't use any other art programs. Um, I've been tempted certainly over the years because I really, really, really don't like the subscription model of Photoshop. If I could, I would just like if they gave me the option to just outright buy Photoshop CC or like Photoshop 2019 or whatever for a set amount of money, I would 100% do that, you know, rather than paying the subscription because obviously in the end you're paying loads of money. Luckily, I've managed to get my subscription down. I've managed to cut it in half what I'm paying a month, so that's been good. But in the past, I have used Paint Tool Sai, and I stuck with it for a few years, but I really did not like the results I was getting. I much preferred Photoshop. I'm way more comfortable with Photoshop. I understand how to use it. And it was kind of convenient because I already knew I was using it in my day job anyways as a graphic designer. So I understood it much better. I was more fluent in it. So that's what I use. And when it comes to traditional art, I don't. So I used to use, outside of the art classes, I used to just use pencil, like a mechanical pencil or inks. And for inks, I would just use Micron. I think they were Micron pens. And then for coloring, there was a couple years, 2 solid years, where I used nothing but pencil crayons. But nowadays, I just use pencil and ink. I rarely do colors traditionally. I did try and use watercolor pens back when I was doing on the day commissions at conventions, but I really didn't. They were just, I could not get the hang of them. I really couldn't. And I didn't like the results I was getting. So I'm not a big fan of them. It was just too, that's the thing. I've had it good with digital art because if you make a mistake, it's easy to undo it. Whereas if you make a mistake in traditional art, you are screwed. So I like the forgiveness that you get with digital art. It makes life a lot easier. It makes you more comfortable to take risks. Feel more comfortable to take risks. So, right. Question 5. How do you paint X? So how do you paint hair? How do you paint metal? How do you paint fabric? You get the idea. I can't answer this question so much in an FA, like in a voiceover video, because it's something I would have to show you. I do have one of the videos I'm currently working on. I'm still recording it. Is a tutorial, and it's a tutorial of how I create painted portraits. So I'm intending for it to be it's not intended to be voiceover. I'm planning on it to be just overlaid text that explains, you know, the odd steps and then shows the step as I work on it. But with the tutorial, like a portrait one, it's kind of it's more of a general tutorial rather than specific, you know, this is specifically how I do hair, or this is specifically how I do, you know, eyes or something like that. It's more, this is how I do a painting start to finish, and these are the steps I take. So if any of you would like to have a more in-depth, you know, tutorial, have me break down exactly how I plan and draw and paint certain elements, do let me know either in the comments or you can send me a DM. And I'd be happy to look into making a tutorial like that for you. I've already had a request numerous times to do a tutorial or to explain how I do hair, so that is definitely in the pipeline. But if there's anything else, whether it's how I paint certain textures or certain I don't know, anything specific, just let me know and I'd be happy to explain it to you. But yeah, keep an eye out for the tutorial. That'll be coming out in the coming weeks. I just actually need to finish the portrait, and then putting the video together should be relatively straightforward. I've not done text over a video before, so that hopefully that will work out. If not, I will have to resort to another voiceover, which I will apologize for in advance. But yeah, we'll see how it turns out. Okay, question 6. How long does it take you to complete a painting? Okay. You're probably not going to like the answer to this because it's just vague. And the vague answer is it depends. Um, there's a lot of variables that affect how long it takes me to complete a painting. Things like what is the painting of? You know, is it a portrait? Is it a full body? Is it a full scene with two characters and a background? You know, all of that obviously helps dictate how long a painting takes. Let's say in regards to a portrait, is the portrait in sort of like a simplistic anime or like heavy anime style, or is it more semi-realistic? Does the character have a lot of details, or are they pretty straightforward and simple? You know, all of that affects how long a painting can take. And then there's a variable which really is kind of, it feels like I have no control over it. Maybe I do, I don't know. But it's almost as if I'll start a painting and all the stars will align and everything I do just works. It's just perfect. I have minimal corrections that I have to do. It's just smooth sailing, start to finish. And let's say I finish the portrait in 4 hours, you know, and it's a full painted, fully rendered, semi realistic portrait, and it's done in 4 hours. And I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. And then I do move on to the next portrait, and it's a very similar portrait to the one I've already done. But for whatever reason, nothing works on it. It's like a fighting an uphill battle. I'm constantly doing corrections. I'm constantly second guessing what I'm doing with it. You know, the colors aren't working, so I have to redo the colors. The shading is poor. The shape of the face doesn't work. So and that painting doesn't take 4 hours. It takes, you know, 17. So it varies a lot. The quickest I've managed to do a painting, a fully rendered painting, was an hour and a half, and that is my scratch painting, which you can see the speed paint of on this channel. I uploaded it a week ago, I think. It was last week. And then for the longer paintings, typically the painted scenes, so anything with a background and a detailed character, they tend to take me 40 or more hours. See, because I've not been recording a lot of my painting processes because I couldn't, I don't have a very clear idea of exactly how long, or not exactly, but more of a general idea of how long it on average takes me to do certain paintings. So now that I'm recording my processes more and more, it will give me that metric to see and figure out. But yeah, it varies quite a bit. It does. All right, question 7. Is art your job? Yes, I am full-time freelance artist. I've been doing that since 2015. Prior to that, I had been working as a graphic designer slash web designer. I had done that for about 5 years, and then after discussing it with my husband, we decided that it was time for me to try doing art full-time. And what I do is in the early years, what I would do, well, early years, it's like I've been doing this for decades. Sorry, in the first 3 years, I I would attend conventions and sell prints and merchandise of my artwork, and I would do on the day commissions. And then I would also get in touch with prospective clients to do commissions outside of conventions, and that's pretty much what I did. So I would do conventions, and then in between conventions, I would fit in any commissions that may come up. But as I started to get more and more demand for commissions outside of conventions, and I started to kind of calculate how much I was spending to attend particularly smaller conventions versus how much I was earning, I made the decision to pull back from conventions and just kind of stop doing that, and instead just focus on doing commissions full time. And instead of selling my merchandise and stuff at conventions, I just sell it online. So I've been doing that for about 2 years now, which I'm so thankful I got out of the convention scene when I did, because obviously with what's gone on this year, if conventions had been my main source of income, I would have been, I know there's a lot of people that are struggling right now. It's really, really unfortunate because, conventions can't go ahead, and they won't be able to go ahead for a while yet. So, but I would like to get back into the convention scene, sort of. I think there's a convention question later on, so I'll get more into that later. But yeah, it's mostly just commissions and online sales is how I make my money. Question 8. Where do you find your inspiration? I find my inspiration from other artists, primarily other artists. I might get inspired by TV shows or stories or music in terms of narratives. So I don't know if you already follow me, you might be aware that I am working on a comic on the side. So I'm often inspired for story elements or character developments, often inspired from other media. But in terms of my own artwork, that is most often inspired by artists that I follow and whatever it is that they create. What I'd like to do is I save any artwork that catches my eye, and I have folders upon folders upon folders that categorize all these different pieces of artwork that I save, so that if a day comes and I want to draw, but I'm really not, I don't have anything in mind, I'm feeling a bit uninspired, I'll flick through one of these folders, see if anything kind of stirs something up in me, and if it does, great, and I go ahead. But yeah, that's primarily where I get my inspiration from. Yeah. Number 9, question 9. How does an artist find their style, and how did you find your style? All right, okay. Let me preface this by saying that what I'm going to explain here, what I'm going to say here is just, it's all my opinion. This isn't necessarily how it is. It's just how I kind of, how I've grown to understand style and how I think it works. So in terms of style, I think I've seen and heard from a lot of artists, particularly younger artists or beginner artists, that are really stressed out and worried about finding their style. And it's kind of, you can't, they I'm often asked, how do I find my style? And it's not really something I can say. I don't believe that your style is something you find. Your style is something that's innate within you. So no matter what, if you're drawing, you're going to have a style that is specific to you. It may not be super obvious at first, but it is there. And what influences your style? I mean, your style is, first off, your skill level, how you've learned to draw, as well as it's affected by what inspires you and where you take influence from. So whether you follow a certain set of artists, those artists are going to influence your style. If you consume certain media, that's going to influence your style. And over time, as you continue to draw and continue to work at it and practice and improve your skill level, your style is going to evolve, and it's probably most likely going to become more prominent, more noticeable, the more confident and comfortable you become with drawing and painting or whatever. And it as I said, it's going to evolve, and it's going to continue to evolve. So, my style 5 years ago, completely different from my style now, because on one hand, I've improved, I've set out to learn new techniques, I've bettered how I do things, whether it's anatomy or whether it's how I draw clothing or armor or stuff. But I've also started to take in influence from a broader range of artists. So whereas maybe 5 years ago there was only 2 or 3 artists that I really liked, and I just kind of followed their work religiously and kind of emulated them a bit, I've now decided, no, I think and I do believe this is good for all artists. I felt it was best to broaden and look at a whole group of different artists and experiment with different kind of techniques and styles that I find and see what fits. And over time it all goes into one melting pot, and what comes out is my style. So that's what I mean. Don't stress yourself out about finding your style. You've got it. Okay? It's always going to be there. Instead, focus on just improving and broadening your knowledge and broadening your inspiration and experimenting. That is such a big one. Experiment with different styles. Try different things. See what works, what doesn't. You might try a technique and incorporate it into your artwork, and you might love it, and it might become a regular thing within your own within your work, and it's possible it could become sort of like a marker that this is so and so's work because of this one particular technique that's always present in these paintings or drawings, you know. But yeah, don't worry about it. If you feel that you don't have a style, I think that's more, it's just in your head. You do have a style. So long as you are not just literally copying other artists, you're going to have a style. That's the thing. So long as you're doing your own thing, you're going to have your own style. So don't stress about it too much. Just sit back and enjoy the ride. Yeah. So question 10. How often do you draw? Okay. How often do I draw? So because this is my full-time job, I try and keep my drawing time confined within Monday to Friday, 9 to 6 or whatever. And then, after hours, I try not to draw, or on the weekend, I try not to draw. I say try not to. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Typically I might have, say, Monday and Tuesday of this week, I don't draw at all because I'm just not feeling it, and instead I do something else. But I've got projects that need to be done, so I say, well, because I missed those 2 days, I'll instead work on Saturday and Sunday and do the drawing I would have done Monday, Tuesday then, or I'll work after hours. If I've got nothing going on in the evening, I've got nothing planned, I'm just kind of hanging out on my own, and I get a burst of inspiration, yeah, I'll draw. But otherwise, I do try and keep some sort of structure to when I draw. But in terms of how many hours in a day, it varies. Typically, it's like 5 to 6 hours a day. But like I said, there are some days where I'm just not feeling it, and I might get 2 hours in the day, or like it's sort of spread out through the day, or I might not draw at all. And there are times where sometimes I'll take a week or two, or maybe even a month off and just not draw at all. But yeah, I'd say on average it's 2 or 3 hours at least every day. It probably works out to something like that. I'm not like one of these artists that I follow that can sit for 8 hours straight and just do nothing but draw. I really can't. I'll draw for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then I'll have to get up, do something else for a bit, which is probably the healthiest thing you can do, because you will do your back in, you will do your muscles in, you will do your body in by just sitting for that long at a computer. So yeah, it's very good and very healthy to take regular short breaks from what you're doing. Right. Question 11. Do you use references, and what are your opinions on using references? So presently, in terms of references, the only time I really use references typically now is, say I get someone who commissions me and they say, I want you to draw this character, but I want them to be wearing this very specific armor set. So they'll send me photos of the armor set, and I will use those as reference for what I'm drawing. In terms of, or like if they say I want this animal in this artwork, so I will gather some references of that type of animal and then draw it. But in terms of like poses or poses or of actual facial features, that's less frequent. The only time I really tend to use a reference or references for poses is when I'm doing comic pages. That tends to be the only time I'm really using references, because obviously I'm going to be showing a much broader range of poses, whereas in my paintings and stuff, there's there's set poses that I tend to stick with. But yeah, I don't really. And in terms of using references, I mean, obviously to learn to draw, I used references all the time, and I think, if that works for you, go for it. It worked for me. If trying to redraw something that you're looking at works for you, certainly do it. And I think it's a great way to learn. The only time I'm ever iffy about references, it's more when it comes down to not giving credit or not being transparent about using references. So for instance, let's say you draw this portrait, you paint this portrait, and it is almost exactly the same as a reference that you used, but you don't acknowledge or mention at any point that when you post this portrait that it's actually drawn from a reference. I think that's really disingenuous, and you're misleading, people that are viewing the art. I think it's best to be upfront and just say, look, this is actually from this picture. And it's even more dodgy if you're using other people's artworks for references and you're heavily referencing it, but then not crediting the original artist. I think that's where problems arise. So, I mean, go for it, use references, but, if you're heavily referencing something, I think it's best to be upfront, whether it's in the description of the artwork or whatever. Just say, look, this was referenced from, and then link back to what you used. I think that is the most honest, and it's the best way to go about it. But in terms of if you're just loosely using, whether it's you collect a bunch of images of a certain kind of pose and you're kind of looking at them all, I think a lot of artists do that. It's a great way to learn. Yeah. Okay. Question 12. What brushes do you use? I use Photoshop's hard round pressure brush, and I use one of the brushes from Loish's brush set, the artist called Loish. I will link to that particular brush set, and I'll also mention what the name of the brush is that I use in the description below. But yeah, I only use those two brushes. I've downloaded loads of brush sets over the years, a lot of them like texture brushes, but I'll let you in on a little secret. I'm an idiot and I don't understand how to use texture brushes. I've tried and I just can't seem to get the hang of it. If any of you are experienced with using texture brushes and how to best get the most out of using them, please let me know, because otherwise I am just slapping texture brushes on there and it just looks stupid. It looks terrible. So please give me advice, because otherwise I don't know how to use them. Okay, question 13. Do you have a tutorial? Do I have an art tutorial? Not right now, but I will have one in the coming weeks. It will be a portrait tutorial. And if you are interested in something more specific, or you'd like a bigger tutorial, let's say a tutorial of me doing a full body or a painted scene, please let me know and I'll do my best to create something. Question 14. Can I use your art? Sure. Yeah, I mean, if you want to use my art for, your avatar or your cover photo, or your desktop wallpaper, your phone wallpaper, please, yeah, go for it. It's really flattering, certainly. Just please don't remove the watermarks or my signature on my artwork. That's obviously put that on there for a reason. So, yeah, please don't remove it. I will, you never know. Maybe in the future I might release actual wallpapers that are watermark free for people to download if they want them. But yeah, otherwise, anything I post on social media, it will have typically that watermark. So that's all with regards to that. If you want to use my art for practice, you want to try redrawing something I've drawn or anything, please, yeah, go for it. I've had some people, some of my followers do that before and tag me in the results, and I love seeing it. It's so cool, and it's really really flattering. It makes me feel good to know that I've been inspiring enough, that you like my art enough to try and redraw it. I mean, that's incredibly flattering. It makes me feel so nice. But yeah, I also provide you can download. I've got some line art that you can download for free off of my website. So if you ever want to practice painting with some of my artwork, you can do that. I wouldn't mind doing some like line art packs uh, for sale for just a small amount that people can download, so they've got multiple different drawings that they can practice with. Again, if that's something any of you would be interested in, let me know and I will get on that. But yeah, feel free to use it. The only time I'd say I'm against using my art is if you use it, if you remove the watermark, or if you edit the image and upload it and don't credit me. That's the only thing. Just please give credit. That's all I ask. And if you want to use my artwork, I've had people who've used it, say for a YouTube video. So for the background on a YouTube video, I think it was like a podcast or something. And they just shoot me a message and just say, are you cool with us using your artwork for this? And 9 times out of 10, I'm going to say yes. But it is nice to be asked. So if you want to use it for something, for promotional purposes, not promotional, but for something like that, I would appreciate it if you just asked first. But otherwise, I mean, so long as my watermark's on it and you give me credit, I'm not going to be too fussed. The art is out there, there's not much I can do about it. There's not much I can do to stop people from taking it and using it for whatever they want. But yeah. So question 15, do you attend conventions? Not anymore. I used to. I don't anymore. That's not to say I won't in the future, but I don't. Well, first off, there's no choice right now. No one has a choice. No one can attend a convention right now. But I was planning on, at some point in the future, I don't know when, whether it's a few years from now, I wasn't intending to attend a couple conventions again, but they would be the much bigger conventions that are kind of near to me. So like MCM or Thought Bubble or maybe SunnyCon. I don't know if any of you would be familiar with these conventions. They're all based in the UK. But it would just be those ones. I used to attend, smaller ones. And while they had their pros for doing them, I just was not making enough money to warrant the costs that I was sinking into those smaller cons. And it's traveling to go to a small con, it wasn't worth it, unfortunately, for me. So I'd only want to be attending the bigger ones if I can get in. And it wouldn't be until I've got 2 projects on the go. So obviously I've got my comic that I want to have printed as a book. And I'm also putting together an art book, a really nice, 60-something page art book that I'd like to have printed and put up for sale. So if it wouldn't be until I wouldn't be attending conventions again until either one or both of those is printed and ready for sale. That's when I would be looking into attending conventions again, because I just wasn't really making a lot off of posters and stickers and badges. I make nothing off of those. You can't really make a lot with those, and unfortunately, posters weren't really selling all that well. So, but I found comic books and that were. So I want to put together some really nice products and sell those instead. All right, so question 16. Do you take requests, art trades, or commissions? All right. I, for the most part, normally don't take requests. I say that way because there are the odd occasions where I might be, I've got nothing else on the go, I'm a bit bored, and I might put out a story. Typically on my Instagram, I'll put out a story and it just says, hey, send me your suggestions for characters to draw or whatever. And I'll take those suggestions and pick 2 or 3 characters or whatever from the suggestions and draw those. But it's kind of a bit different from a direct request. I mean, I don't typically take direct requests. And I don't do art trades either. I've only ever done an art trade once, and it was all right. It was cool, but I just don't have the time. I've got a lot of projects on the go, and then in between my own projects, I've got commissions, so it's kind of I just don't have the time to be doing stuff like that. And then to answer the question about commissions, yes, I do commissions. I open commission bookings about 3 times a year. I wanted to do 4 times this year, but with how long it was taking for me to finish, each batch of commissions, I realized if I opened 4 times, it would leave me next to no time to work on my own personal stuff. So I wouldn't get work done on my comic. I wouldn't get work done on my own personal paintings. I would just be basically doing commissions back to back to back. And I didn't want to do that. So this year I'm only opening it 3 times. It will probably be a similar thing next year. And then when I do open them, I only open a limited amount of slots. I don't have a set number. I know some artists say, I'm opening, there's 6 slots available. I don't tend to do it that way because it all does depend on what people are booking. There is such a variation. Some people might book a full painted scene, whereas others might just book portraits. So I kind of keep in mind, how many of certain types of commissions I'm willing to book in at once and go from there. But it tends to average around 5 to 7 slots tends to be what it is. And it tends to be I only take on about 2 painted scenes in one go. I did try and do 3 one time, and that was stressful. So yeah, I tend to limit it to only 2 painted scenes per commission opening. But yeah, if you're curious about any of my commission information, my prices, or what kind of options there are, you can find all that information on my website. I'll link it in the description below. It's also linked on all my social media. Just go to the commissions section on my website and it breaks down everything for you. And if you have questions, or if if say my commissions are closed at the time, but you want to quote, or you want to inquire about potentially booking in the future, feel free to send me a message, and I'm happy to chat with you about it, and I'm happy to give quotes for work. And also, if you want a bit of a heads up, I do give a heads up on all my social media, but I'm also happy to shoot you a DM if you want a heads up prior to, like, just before I'm about to open my slots, so you can get in there. I'm happy to do that for you as well. Right, question 17. Do you experience art block? And if so, what do you do to fix it? Yes, everyone knows art block, every artist. I don't think there's an artist out there that hasn't experienced art block. Yep, I do experience it. I experience art block, and I also experience art burnout. They're similar, but I find burnout is a bit more long lasting. I've burned myself out when I've way overbooked myself with commissions and that, and then I end up working months and months and months on commissions, and then by the end I'm just like, I have no desire to draw my own stuff, and I have to take an extended break. But in terms of art block and that, what I find helps a lot, firstly, what I'll try and do, say I sit down at the computer and I want to draw, but nothing comes to mind, or when I try and draw, I'm uninspired, and anything I try and do doesn't seem to work out because I've got nothing really in mind anyways. What I'll typically do is I'll just walk away. I'll just take a break, whether the break is for a day or a couple days or a week or 2, however long it takes. Sometimes I'll take a break, And then usually that kind of sorts it out. You know, I wait till I start to really feel the desire to draw, and then I'll come back to it. Another thing I'll do if, say, I don't have the time to take a break, or, you know, I've taken a break and it still isn't really gone, is I will try and give myself something really easy and simple to draw that's relatively rewarding as a result. The reason why I do that is the chances, so like let's say I'll say, okay, I'll draw a really basic cute girl anime portrait, because those are really easy to do for me, at least because I've done them so many times. So the chances of me creating it and it working out are high, and it works sort of like a confidence boost, because I think that is in some regards part of what can cause art block, is you just kind of, you're not feeling it and your confidence isn't there. So I kind of use that simplistic drawing as a way to boost your confidence and make you feel good, and then from there, usually once that's successful, then you can move on and kind of get back into the swing of things. um, but yeah, sometimes, I mean, in rare instances, you'll have it where the break doesn't work, the simple drawing doesn't work, and I think in those cases you just got to power through it. You just got to force yourself and keep kind of hitting that wall until you break through. Because, I mean, the worst thing you can do is just give up. If you just stop completely because of art block or art burnout, you know, it's going to, the more time that passes between you stopping drawing and then getting back on the horse, so to speak, the harder it's going to be. And the last thing you want to do is put it off for too long, and then you just don't feel comfortable with it anymore, and you just the desire is gone. So sometimes you do kind of need to push through it. But yeah, I mean, those are the things that work for me. I think every artist is different. And if it's in terms of art block, you know, I'm not feeling inspired or anything, that's when I go to my folders of artwork and start looking at what other artists have done and what inspires me from their work. And that usually also kind of gets my creative juices flowing. So that can also possibly help you guys as well, if you ever experience a lack of inspiration. Question 18. What is your favorite thing to draw? And this is actually the last question. So what is my favorite thing to draw? I love drawing people. I love drawing people. I draw people all the time. I've been having a blast drawing these like half body character designs or character concepts of all the characters that are present or will be present in my comic series. That's been a lot of fun because I get to experiment with all sorts of different looks and styles and stuff. So that's been like a really big highlight for me. That's been a lot of fun to do. More specifically, I love to paint metal or like really shiny textures, as well as armor, like metal armor. I've been having so much fun painting these Sandalari characters that I've been commissioned to draw, because their armor, their heritage armor, is all this like fancy gold, very kind of, it's geometric, but like I'm able to kind of play with it because oftentimes they're warriors. So another thing I love to draw is like busted up and smashed and scarred armor. I love it. I love it. That is my highlight. That's why I've loved painting their armor, because I can also do different textures. That's another thing I love playing with, is textures. So having, you know, shiny armor, shiny metal, but then also have more kind of matte textured metal, or, you know, stone armor, or, you know, I had wood. I love painting. Bark is fun. Yeah. I have a love-hate relationship with hair. Sometimes it just works and I love it and it's so satisfying, and other times I absolutely hate it and I I have a bit of a fight with it. So hair is a love-hate relationship. Um, Another one I like to do is glossy fur. That's fun. That's really fun to do. Fur in general, kind of getting those slight gradients between different tones in the fur. Oh, that's fun. So satisfying to do. Yeah, I love doing that. But yeah. So that is all the questions that I have for now. So hopefully this has been helpful, informative. Hopefully I've answered these questions well enough for you guys. If not, if any of you have any other questions, or if you would like me to elaborate a bit further on what I've already answered, please do get in touch again, whether it's in the comments or a direct message, and I'd be happy to answer those for you. If I get enough new questions, I'd be happy to do another video like this in the future, but it wouldn't be for a while because I'd want those questions to accumulate. So I've actually got a bunch to talk about. But yeah, hopefully this has been a big help, and hopefully the video itself has been entertaining enough. And again, if you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you like following artists on YouTube, or these kinds of videos interest you, consider subscribing. Or if you like my artwork, you can follow me on social media. Again, as I said, I'm intending on releasing a few more videos. They're not just going to be speed paints. I'm trying to avoid only releasing speed paints. I'd like to kind of give a bit of variation in my videos. If you guys have any suggestions on art-related videos you'd like to see, or that could be interesting to watch, please feel free to let me know. I'd love to get some ideas going for videos. So obviously I've got the tutorial on the go. I do have another speed paint that's just going to be a speed paint video, and then I'd like to do that review of the Cintiq. If you'd like me to do reviews of other stuff I've used, whether it's different operating systems or whether it's Photoshop versus Paint Tool Sci, I'm willing to download Paint Tool Sci again and give it a go, see what I think. If you'd like to see a speed video of me drawing something traditionally, I could try and set that up as well. But yeah, other than that, again, hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.